Hey, you can kids. This is Module 13 in Section 3. We're dealing with unemployment today. So, as we're looking at unemployment, first off, we do have to think about jobs and what it means when new jobs are created. Sometimes it means old jobs are destroyed, and sometimes that's a good thing. As you're looking at new technologies, things that are happening to an economy, if we're going to take, let's say, broadband internet, right, and we're going to replace dial up internet. The broadband stuff is way faster, way better than dial up ever was, but it probably means that that guy who used to come to your house and probably install that dial up service, maybe he doesn't have a job anymore, or he's had to change. So when they talk about job destruction, a lot of times that's healthy for an economy because it means your economy is advancing. Your economy is doing something better maybe than it was doing before. So really destroying some jobs, as long as they're being replaced with better jobs, higher paying jobs, it's okay to have some job destruction. When we're talking about unemployment then, the first thing we're going to look at is frictional unemployment. Frictional unemployment is people who are graduating from college looking for a job. There are people graduating from high school who are looking for employment. So as people graduate and look, that's frictional unemployment. If people are switching jobs from one to another, they're sick of doing this and they're moving and doing that, that is also frictional unemployment. Frictional unemployment is actually pretty good for an economy. It means people are looking for better jobs. But what we will find is in times of low unemployment, your frictional stuff is usually a pretty short time, right? You're going to see people who are like kind of moving jobs because people are looking, and then all of a sudden people are like hiring, and they might be able to take that person, hire them to do something else, maybe hopefully something better, maybe that pays a little bit more rewarding, all sorts of things you could be looking for. If unemployment is high, these frictional things take a little bit longer. Sometimes if you're a new college graduate, you might say, you know what, I'm going to go back and get my graduate degree because it's tough getting a job right now. The job market's kind of slow. So I'm going to go get more schooling instead. So this frictional unemployment idea is people who are changing jobs in an economy. Now, structural unemployment. The idea behind structural unemployment is that something is going on in the economy that's causing people not to work. So in this case, when we look at structural unemployment, the example given above shows a minimum wage. So if this is a supply of labor, this is your demand for labor, this is my number of workers, and here is my wage rate. And let's say my wage rate is $7.25 an hour. Okay. If that's happening in your economy, and then somebody comes in and says, "Oh yeah, we need to put our minimum wage up to $15 an hour." Okay. If that happens and we put a minimum wage up to $15 an hour, you are definitely going to see some structural unemployment. Because what's going to happen? The supply of people wanting to work is going to be super high, right? But the demand for those workers isn't going to be quite so high. We're going to see a higher supply of workers than people want to hire at that particular wage. So because we've raised these wages, you're going to see less demand for this labor. This is unemployment up here, but the reason it's unemployment is happening is because this is structural. Something is happening in the economy. The structure of the economy is causing this to occur. All right. So as you look at different types of unemployment, frictional, structural. If you look at the causes of structural unemployment, sometimes it's things like a minimum wage went in place. Sometimes it's things like a labor union. Typically, we'll talk about labor unions as positive for workers, right? Labor unions tend to give you things like the 40-hour work week, paid time off, vacations, safety, and then it also usually raises your wages, right? Well, if the labor union is artificially raising your wage, right, keeping your wage higher than maybe what it should be, because of that, we're going to see some structural problems in the economy, like not enough people who maybe are qualified to do that job are going to be able to do that job because the labor union is keeping that up a little bit higher. right? The trade-off is we're looking for higher wages, right? That's what union wages are looking for. But they end up with sometimes some unemployment happening, right? Um, Efficiency wages. As efficiency wages happen, wages that employers, if they don't know, remember we talked about efficiency wages, we said we really don't know what a person is worth. Sometimes that keeps the wage up a little bit high, causes some structural unemployment as well. And the last one is sometimes it's public policy, right? Like what if unemployment benefits are pretty good right now and I'm willing to not work because I would rather be unemployed. Like the coronavirus is happening and people would give maybe an extra money to people who are unemployed. Well, there are some people who, when they work their job, might not make as much as that unemployment was, so they might just not really look, and then all of a sudden they're unemployed, but it's because something's happening in the economy itself that's causing that to occur. So that's a structural thing. That's another example of it, a little bit closer up, a little bit bigger for you. So now, the natural rate of unemployment is the normal rate in which that unemployment is going to move around. The natural rate of unemployment then is our frictional plus structural. So frictional, people who are just looking for work, plus structural is going to equal our natural unemployment, okay? Now, we have to add one more to the mix. Cyclical unemployment is when the business cycle is happening, right? So the business cycle is going up and down, right? And we have that trend line. We talked about this before. In times that are good, you're going to see low unemployment, right? But when times go bad and down here, we're going to see unemployment increase. That idea of where we are in the business cycle, that is cyclical unemployment. So if we add cyclical unemployment in here, natural plus cyclical is going to actually each equal our actual rate of unemployment. All right, natural plus cyclical. Now, what could happen to your natural rate of unemployment, or how could that change? Sometimes it's your labor force characteristics change. What if you have older people? Older people that are more experienced, maybe they want to stick on for a little bit longer. Maybe the economy is, not really doing so great. So they're like, one more year for the retirement or something like that. Well, now all of a sudden, those frictional people can't get a job because the frictional people are like, the job isn't there for them. They're trying to look, they just graduated, whatever it might be. The older person is hanging on for one more year. Sometimes it's changes in labor market institutions themselves. Like labor unions are nowhere near as powerful as they once were. So when you think about that, the declining role of unions, they can't raise wages like they once did. So maybe more people are going to be employed as a result. Better technology for finding a job, like LinkedIn and Monster.com and all these different search engines that are out there that maybe will help you find a job, especially right after school. Or maybe if you're just kind of like sick of the job you have and you just post your resume someplace and all of a sudden someone calls you and says, hey, we saw your resume posted here. Do you want to come look? And that can change how unemployment is affected, right? You might not be unemployed for as long, or you might switch jobs quicker than you used to be able to, just due to technology. And the last one is sometimes we have changes in government policies. Sometimes we'll see like a subsidy to hire unemployed workers. Like, hey, we have this group, and sometimes it's specific to a group of people. Like we'll see, hey, these guys have a felony on their record and they're, serve their time. They're good guys, but no one will hire them because like they have a criminal record. Well, maybe if the government kicks in a few bucks, somebody will take a chance on that person and they're a good worker. Sometimes you'll see programs to obtain workers with like obsolete skill sets. There was something I was reading about. There was a certain language that was computer coded, and it dealt with programs to pay like payroll programs, and nobody knew how to use it. And all of a sudden they had to like go back and get these old retired guys who wrote this code back in the day, and then they had to teach the new people like how to do the code so that the payroll system still was efficient. And it was I think it was something to do with either sending out the social security checks or sending out something in the government in regards to pay, and they hadn't turned over to something new yet. So you might have to, maybe you pay somebody with that obsolete skill to be able to continue it at least until something can change it, or they move on to something else. So these are all ideas behind unemployment. We'll do some specific calculations of how we get unemployment, in a different unit, but this is kind of the idea behind structural, frictional, natural, cyclical, and then what the actual unemployment rate is. Till next time.